Picture the coldest day you've ever experienced. Now multiply that by about 5, and you'll start to understand what the Inuit deal with on a regular basis. At 64 degrees, even the freezer in your kitchen would feel like a summer afternoon. I once complained about my heating breaking down in the middle of winter. Now imagine living in the Arctic, where the cold doesn't just nip at your skin, it literally devours you. While we wrap ourselves in blankets and crank the thermostat to the max, Inuit communities have learned to sleep in extreme conditions without any modern heating at all. They've turned survival into an art form, using techniques passed down through generations. To help you grasp the scale, at these temperatures, metal becomes so brittle it can shatter like glass. Exposed skin freezes in less than 30 seconds, so how do they even manage? It all starts with something that looks deceptively simple from the outside, the igloo. But trust me, these aren't just pretty snow domes. You're probably asking yourself right now, how can a structure made of snow keep you warm when outside it's colder than a penguin's toes? The igloo only looks simple from the outside. Inside, it's a remarkable, carefully engineered structure. This isn't just a random pile of snow shaped into a dome. These are genuine architectural masterpieces that would make modern engineers scratch their heads in admiration. Let me explain what makes these snow shelters so brilliant. First of all, the snow blocks aren't stacked randomly, they're laid in a spiral. Each block is carefully tilted inward, forming what engineers call a catenoid curve. Basically, this means the structure is so strong, it won't collapse even if the neighbor's kid decides to play King Kong on top of it. The blocks aren't cut from fluffy snow like you'd use for a snowman, it's densely packed snow. And that snow is actually an amazing insulator. Inside each block, there are countless tiny air pockets that trap heat like a cozy winter jacket. Inside an igloo, the temperature can rise to plus 116 degrees using nothing but the heat from human bodies. That's right, no stove, no heater, just the warmth of human bodies doing their thing. Have you ever been stuck in a small elevator with a bunch of people? Same principle, except here it's actually useful. The dome shape also plays a key role. It creates natural air circulation. Cold air sinks down toward the entrance, which is deliberately built lower than the living area, while warm air rises to where people sleep. The entrance tunnel isn't just for looks. It acts as an airlock, just like on a spaceship, creating a barrier between the warm interior and the freezing Arctic wind outside. Here's something interesting. Some traditional igloos even had multiple rooms, making them true snow mansions. But to actually retain heat in these snow palaces, there's one more critical factor. What's above your head? Proper ventilation in an igloo is literally a matter of life and death. That tiny hole at the top of the dome is a carefully designed engineering feature that keeps the air fresh and prevents carbon dioxide poisoning. When the temperature inside rises to a comfortable plus 116 degrees, warm air rises, and with it, all the carbon dioxide you exhale. Without ventilation, carbon dioxide would build up very quickly, and that's not exactly the kind of atmosphere you want to sleep in. But that ventilation hole serves another important purpose. When warm air meets the snow ceiling, it creates a thin layer of melted water. And yeah, at first that sounds like bad news. Nobody wants water dripping on them while they sleep. But that water soaks back into the snow ceiling and freezes, forming a sealed ice layer that makes the igloo even stronger. The size of the ventilation hole matters too. If it's too big, you lose too much heat. If it's too small, you could suffocate. The Inuit have perfected this system over generations. Modern engineers would call it a passive ventilation system. And if you get the ventilation wrong, the consequences can be pretty bad. When I was a kid, I built a snow fort and sealed it completely. I ended up with a soggy, collapsed mess that looked more like a pastry than a shelter. Temperature control inside an igloo is so precise that even a tiny seal oil lamp can make it too warm, forcing you to adjust the ventilation on the fly. Yes, overheating in a snow house is actually a thing. But staying warm isn't just about the building. It's also about what you wear while inside. In the Arctic, choosing clothing isn't about fashion. It's about survival. While we make do with a wool sweater, Inuit sleeping clothes are a masterpiece of temperature adaptation. They look like something designed by someone who really, really hates being cold. The secret lies in the layers, lots of them. Each layer serves a specific function and works as part of a well-coordinated system. The inner layer is typically made from caribou hide, with the fur turned inward. It wicks moisture away from the body better than any modern athletic wear. That's critical because sweat in the Arctic is your worst enemy. Wet clothing quickly turns into an icy cocoon. The middle layer traps air, lots of air. The Inuit figured out long ago what modern gear manufacturers spend millions on. Air is one of the best natural insulators. By creating several thin layers with air pockets between them, they essentially turn their clothing into a personal greenhouse. And unlike down jackets, which lose their insulating power when you lie on them, the Inuit's natural materials retain heat even while lying down. The outer layer is especially interesting. It's usually sealskin with the fur facing outward. It makes the clothing windproof and waterproof. The natural oils in sealskin make it an excellent barrier against moisture, better than most modern membranes. I once wore a modern jacket in a light drizzle and came out looking like I'd jumped in a pool. This traditional gear just laughs at Arctic storms. And everything is adjustable. If you get hot, loosen a layer. If you're cold, tighten things up. Basically, it's a thermostat built right into your clothing. And if you think that's impressive, wait until I tell you what they sleep on. Because the Inuit created the perfect sleeping system long before synthetic insulation existed. Their sleeping bags are made from sealskin on the outside and lined with caribou fur. Genuine engineering masterpieces that would make modern outdoor gear companies weep with envy. Sealskin is essentially a waterproof shield crafted by nature itself. It's naturally oiled and repels water. And unlike synthetic materials that become brittle in extreme cold, sealskin actually gets softer and stronger as the temperature drops. But the real magic is the caribou fur inside. Each caribou hair is hollow. These tiny tubes trap air like millions of microscopic thermoses, creating insulation that no modern sleeping bag can match. 1 square centimeter of this fur contains more air capsules than the most expensive synthetics can provide. And the fur is arranged in a specific direction to hold warm air while still allowing moisture to escape. It's like a one-way valve for heat. But the Inuit don't just sew these materials together any old way. Their sleeping bags are stitched with sinew, which swells when wet, creating waterproof seams. I once tried to seal a tent with expensive modern sealant, and the result was, well, far from dry. These traditional seams have been keeping people warm and dry for thousands of years. Even the shape of these bags is thoughtfully designed. They fit snugly enough to eliminate excess air pockets, but aren't so tight that you feel like a sausage in a casing. You can shift position a bit without letting all your accumulated heat escape. But before climbing into these cozy cocoons, the Inuit have one more secret trick that changes everything. Preheating the sleeping area. You know those fancy electric blankets you plug into the wall? The Inuit had their own version, no electricity required. Enter hot rocks. And not just any rocks off the ground. The Inuit carefully select ones that hold heat for a long time. They heat them by the fire until they're almost too hot to touch, then wrap them in thick hides and place them around the sleeping area. It works like a natural heating pad. A rock gradually releases heat throughout the night, and even hours later it can still hold up to 40 degrees C. Placement matters too. They put them where the feet go and close to the body, directing warmth where it's needed most. Once a rock cools down, they swap it out. That's a carbon-free heating system, aside from a little smoke from the fire. And here's the genius part. When a warm rock rests on the snow platform, it melts the surface slightly, and then the water refreezes, creating a dense layer of ice that holds heat even better. Some communities even came up with a rock replacement schedule. Different families would take turns maintaining a common fire, so there were always hot rocks ready. It's like borrowing sugar from a neighbor, except here you're sharing something that can save lives. But rocks aren't everything. There's one heat source more reliable than any fire, and that's the human body. Every minute, the human body gives off about as much heat as a 100-watt light bulb. That's right. You are a living lamp, just without a cord or an on-off switch. The Inuit have long understood that sharing body heat is essential, especially at night. So in traditional conditions, families sleep pressed close together, like one big sleeping bag for everyone. Person is one lamp, 2 people make a heater, 3 people are practically a radiator. It's like compound interest, except instead of money, you're earning warmth. Yes, it might sound awkward by modern standards, but when it's 64 degrees outside, you forget about personal boundaries pretty fast. Now here's the really interesting part. The sleeping platform in an igloo is raised because warm air rises. So sleeping on a raised platform means sleeping in the warmest spot. Instead of shivering on ice, you're basically in a snow penthouse. Your neighbors just happen to be your relatives. Research has shown that a family of 4 can raise the temperature around themselves by 20 degrees above the rest of the igloo. That's essentially a bioelectric heater running on the warmth of sleeping people. No breakdowns, no maintenance, unless of course the whole family goes on vacation. The Inuit also developed specific sleeping positions to hold in heat and minimize contact with cold surfaces. It's like a game of human Tetris, except the goal isn't to clear a line, it's to not freeze to death. But if you think it's all about clothing and positions, you'd be wrong. To truly conserve heat, you need to breathe properly. Breathing seems like the most natural thing in the world, until you find yourself in cold that literally freezes the hairs in your nostrils. So the Inuit developed breathing techniques that would make any yogi jealous. The thing is, when you breathe through your mouth in extreme cold, you lose heat almost as fast as a phone battery dies in winter. That's why it's important to breathe through your nose. It's like a built-in heater and humidifier all in one. Your nose warms incoming air by nearly 30 degrees Celsius in a split second before it reaches your lungs. The Inuit also practiced deep, slow breathing to minimize the volume of cold air entering their system. Quick, shallow breathing, the kind we do while jogging, doesn't help here. It's like trying to warm yourself up with a cup of snow. Some would even breathe directly into their fur clothing, creating a warm, moist pocket of air in front of their face. The moisture from their breath would condense and freeze in the fur, creating an extra layer of insulation. Imagine breathing and actually making your clothes warmer. But the Inuit took it even further. They synced their breathing with their activity. When moving, breathing was slightly faster but shallow to avoid overheating. When sleeping, it was deep and slow to preserve maximum warmth. All of this also requires a tremendous amount of energy, which is why the Inuit diet is specifically designed to keep the internal furnace running. It contains far more calories than the average person's diet. For example, whale blubber provides over 9 calories per gram. That's more than twice what most protein bars offer. A single traditional Inuit meal can provide enough energy for an entire day spent in Arctic conditions. In winter, fat makes up as much as 75% of their diet. Any cardiologist would faint, but in their climate, this diet isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. It's like sunscreen in the desert, not indulgence, but survival. And it's not just about quantity, it's also about composition and timing. Some foods are eaten specifically at night because they digest slowly, warming the body during sleep like a heater with a timer built right into your stomach. The Inuits' go-to energy drinks are raw fish, seal meat, and dried whale skin with blubber. Even the way they cut meat is specialized. They slice it into thin strips so it can be eaten even when frozen without breaking any teeth. Scientific research has only recently confirmed that some fats provide more heat when eaten raw than when cooked. The Inuit knew this for centuries. On top of that, their food is rich in omega-3s and fat-soluble vitamins, which help the body adapt to the cold. But surviving in such conditions depends not only on what you eat, but also on how you think. The Arctic is a test not just of physical strength, but of mental resilience as well. Worrying about freezing is stress, and stress only makes you feel colder. That's why the Inuit approach sleep with calm and confidence. Their traditional bedtime stories aren't just entertainment. They're a method for building cold-resistant minds. One story tells of a young hunter who relaxed so deeply in his igloo that he slept through the entire spring. It's a joke, of course, but humor helps children associate snow shelters with coziness rather than fear. The core idea is that laughter lowers stress levels, which in turn helps preserve body heat during sleep. The Inuit also practiced what modern science calls thermal meditation, a particular state of calm that reduces shivering and conserves energy during sleep. From an early age, children are taught to focus not on the cold, but on the inner warmth they generate themselves. It's like a mental thermostat that helps you fall asleep even when the air around you freezes with every breath. Research confirms that this kind of calm state lowers heart rate and metabolism during sleep, meaning the body needs less oxygen. When you inhale less air, you lose less heat. And when it comes to bringing all these survival skills together, nobody does it better than the community itself. Because in the Arctic, survival is a team sport, honed over thousands of years. When temperatures drop to bone-chilling lows, Inuit communities transform into finely tuned survival machines. Extended families build large igloos, creating thermal clusters that can raise the inside temperature to 12 to 114 degrees size using nothing but body heat. The community also has systems for distributing sleeping resources. The best sealskin sleeping bags go to those who need them most, like the elderly, who are especially sensitive to the cold, or exhausted hunters returning from a long trip. Some families specialize in certain skills. Some are masters at cutting snow blocks, others excel at building raised sleeping platforms. There are even igloo architects who can read snow the way meteorologists read weather maps. Beyond that, the Inuit build emergency shelters in advance and mark travel routes so they can be seen even in a blizzard. These aren't just rest stops. They're survival stations, complete with sleeping platforms and essential supplies. A genuine network of Arctic hotels where the only price is staying alive. Even humor plays a role. There's a story about a man who was banished to sleep separately because of his loud snoring, until the family realized his body heat outweighed the noise, and they invited him back. In conditions where even your thoughts can freeze, even bad jokes become survival tools. In the end, the greatest weapon against the Arctic night isn't the igloo, isn't the clothing, isn't even the technique. It's the strength of a community that never lets anyone face the cold alone. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more incredible facts and captivating stories from Inuit life.